I want to talk about my friend David. And while I'm doing that, you can see that the player character is turning very slowly, and then after turning, a walk cycle begins. What you might also notice is that the more I walk, the more I turn, the quicker it gets. This is how you will accumulate skills in Chimera. There'll also be fall-offs, and there will be training adaptation, and there will be rest required, because that's the kind of stuff I like. Now, you can't really do anything at the moment. You're kind of stuck. But as you get faster and faster at turning, and you get faster at moving, well, you develop sufficient energy to do things you might not have been able to do before. Like, for example, make a wall start to change. So once my speed got above a certain threshold, I'd impacted that wall hard enough that it started to change. And in the next build, the wall will eventually dissolve and you'll be able to go through. So what appears to be impossible with skill becomes possible, and that's going to be kind of an underlying message of the game. There, that's better. So, David. David is the designer of Floor 13 Deep State. We've been friends for decades. David did the physics for a game I wrote on and for the Watara Supervision back in 1991, 92. It was called Tennis Pro 92, imaginatively. And it was okay. I mean, it was obviously nowhere near as good as the Game Boy version on which it was loosely based, but it was a nice little game. And David did the physics for me because, he's got a degree in physics, so why not? And clearly David knows his maths, and I don't. And he had all of this stuff that he wrote in C, and I converted it without understanding much of it into a 6502 assembler. So, was it 6502 assembler? Yeah, it was. Something like that. Yeah, pretty sure it's 6502. 6502 variant anyway. And the variables are all straightforward, kind of variables that someone who knows maths would use. But there was one unusual variable, and David called it SQUIB. Yes, SQUIB. I asked him what this was for, and he tried to explain to me that no matter what, if you rely entirely on physics, there's going to be some mismatch in the real world. You can't model everything perfectly. And so he introduced this SQUIB factor, which made the ball behave in a more natural manner. I remembered this today when I was working on the demo you just saw. And I've been thinking about all kinds of equations related to skill, the acquisition of skill, the retention of skill, the training effect, and so on. And this is important because I'm working on another project with another friend of mine, Pete Morrish, that uses these things. And Chimera serves as an interesting testbed for some of these ideas. I've had many other ideas that I'd like to use in Chimera related to human drives and what happens when you translate those drives to things like walls. Like, does a wall have a drive? If it did, what would that drive be? Perhaps it would be to defend itself. And perhaps it has some kind of behavior that if it was on an intelligent ship, it would engage in order to defend its integrity. And you saw an example of that. Anyway, so I started thinking about really complex systems and how I was going to connect them all together, and I've been writing this stuff up for days. And I was having a quick chat with David about how I could use maths to adequately model some kind of training effect where if you used a skill for a certain period of time, the time that you spent under the graph of speed for that period of time would contribute to your ability to retain some of that skill. Anyway, I wrote a whole bunch of stuff, and he was very nice about it. But basically at that point, he reminded me of the lesson that he taught me in using the variable name SQUIB. And so we have very SQUIB-like learning of behavior right now. The code is awful. It doesn't matter. I've moved forward. That's what matters. The code will get better. It doesn't have to be perfect today. Perfect is the enemy of the good. And for today, it's good enough. See you soon.